Raise your voices, raise your glass high. Welcome to the Drink O'Clock Podcast. Let's dive. Oh, grab an old fashioned and join the fray. Raise your spirits, let the music play. From the corner pub to the dance hall floor. Drink O'Clock Podcast, we're ready for more.
So it's not every day that I record on a Saturday. So this is a special recording for me. And I will say this, I was super stoked to have you on because you have a really cool background. I think it's going to be fun. And I think this is going to be probably more educational than you'd expect, because I have a lot of questions, and I'm sure there's a lot of other people that have similar questions. But this is the Drink O'Clock Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Valincius, and I have the pleasure of having with me Jack Violent. Welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, appreciate you having me on. Hail Rob and hail the Drink O'Clock Podcast.
Yeah, so we love to hear it. Now, I'm probably not going to even fucking be able to say the name correctly, but you're a Cardinal Peccatum?
Peccatum. So
Peccatum.
That is Latin for sin, so cardinal sin. Before we get started, I wanted to congratulate you on 100 episodes. I feel like this is a pretty cool milestone, and I guess, episode 101, which bears no fanfare whatsoever. But as a celebration to 100 episodes, I have 4 shots of Maker's Mark, what I call Mark of the Beast. I'm going to power chug that now before the show gets started, and then we can get to the actual drinking.
I fucking love it. Cheers, brother. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Woo! Mark of the Beast, baby. Woo!
Woo! Hand was shaking on that one a little bit. I haven't done that in a while. So that'll, I guess, inform you a bit about the way that this episode's going to go.
Yeah, so for episode 100, I cracked open a bottle of good whiskey for my old fashions. And I haven't really been drinking as much. Trying to be a little healthier. But I allow myself to drink on special occasions, and we drink a little bit more on the holidays. And, if we feel like it, we do it. Because I was drinking every day, okay? And now, look, I'll preface this by saying I don't have a problem, okay? Like, I'm not getting the shakes by not drinking and shit, which is good.
As you just saw in that intro, that hand, it's probably more nerves than it is shakes, but I digress.
Yeah, no, that's...
But a good friend of mine,
nerves.
Lemmy Kilmister, who you guys referenced in the 100th episode, he had to quit drinking whiskey because of health problems. So in his mind, he rationalized that drinking vodka was more healthy. Later on in life, because his drink, so if you go to the Rainbow, what you guys were talking about with the statue and the cigarette, and you order a Lemmy, that's just a Jack and Coke. That's just what you're going to get. Call it a Lemmy. And so later on in life, he had to mix... He basically drank screwdrivers the last, I think, 2 years of his life before he died.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. A girl at work, we were talking, and I was telling her, I'm like, yeah, I tend to drink Captain and Diet, which actually you wouldn't think, but Captain Morgan as a spiced rum is actually pretty good from a calorie perspective.
Okay.
I think it's like 85 or 87 calories for a shot, whereas vodka, you might think. Now, vodka has no carbs. Captain has like 0.2 per shot. But vodka actually has more calories. And that's just like standard vodka. If it's flavored vodka, it's even more.
Oh, shit.
So like if you're talking like a shot of Tito's, it's like 97.5 calories per shot.
Damn.
In my mind, I would think Captain would be more, right? It's the brown spirit.
Sure.
But whiskey's the same way. Whiskey actually tends to be less calories. Now, if you're going into the more fancier shit, you're gonna push the 1 to 120 range.
Yeah.
But that's the shit because you're talking higher alcohol too. You're talking like 90 to 100 proof typically for the good shit. But I just I was explaining to her that, and because she's like, oh yeah, I'm trying to cut back. I'm just drinking vodka and water, and I'm like, you do know that vodka still has calories, right? And she's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, like. And it has more calories than you'd expect, actually.
It's the health drink that doctors don't want you to know about.
Yeah, I broke her for that, and then she still gives me shit. But look, man, this is fun. Let's get into this shit.
Let's do it.
I did break something that I don't normally do. I sent you some example stuff that I'm going to, bring up, be a little prepared. But I know that you said you got caught before being on a podcast and it was like a gotcha type shit. Not here, brother.
Yeah, so
not here.
I actually requested you to send the questions, and that's more to help me because I tend to ramble. So this will at least help me kind of stay on track. But yeah, now I've done a few of these. I had met you on the Reddit, the subreddit, and I had met quite a few other people there too, and I didn't research their show. That was a problem that I had starting off. Like when I had seen your thing, I had listened to the Drink O'Clock podcast, and I was like, I see where this guy's coming from. So obviously I kind of knew going into it that wouldn't be the case. But the initial first two times, people wanted to have a Satanist on there as like a gotcha moment. And Satanism really, it's more benign than most people kind of think it is. And I'll actually start the podcast off with a question to you.
Yeah.
Before today, what has been your thought about Satanism? What do you think it is?
So I'm gonna say it's the wrong kind of what I'm thinking,
okay.
And it's the media. So what show? Have you ever seen this show, Evil?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Fucking love that show. I'm actually sad it ended, but it was probably one of my favorite, good versus evil. But it's like you didn't know sometimes who you wanted to be the winner because evil was like human. Mm-hmm. And I know that that's probably more what you guys practice, but in my head it was and they even had an episode about Satanism. I don't know if you saw that episode, but you should look it up.
I think I may have missed that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and they were investigating a Satanist church. There was some stuff going on, but basically, the media portrays it as you guys, you're evil, you worship Satan, you want, no government, you want to, it's all evil shit, right? There's no good. And at the end of the day, what's good, really?
Sure.
Do we,
So Satanism is, so one of the questions is like the origins of Satanism. Satanism has started at the dawn of time. It's been around as long as Christianity and as around as Judaism. But modern Satanism started in 1966. Mr. Anton LaVey formed the Church of Satan, and their text is called the Satanic Bible. Now, where we differentiate ourselves from Church of Satan is the Satanic Bible is basically a text called The Might is Right, which is a alt-right, neo-Nazi, very white supremacy coded text that Anton LaVey kind of tweaked and prodded to make the Satanic Bible. So a lot of people who originally, and that was like the cause of the satanic panic of the 80s and 90s, was because like reading that text and seeing some of the outlandish the rituals they would do. They still weren't killing people. They still weren't drinking blood, but it was very showmanship. So our version of Satanism is, so Anton LaVey created like modern Satanism. We took it a step further in like 2013 when the Satanic Temple started. And the Satanic Temple started, because I don't speak for them, I'm only giving them broad generalizations because they love to sue people. So once again, I'm not from them. This is just the kind of version that we took and morphed. It is a religion. Satanism is a protected, federally recognized religion that is founded more on activism than it is truly like just a religion. And what I mean by activism is we believe that everybody should have the exact same rights. Who is some old crusty white dude in Washington to tell women what to do with their body? Who is some old crusty white dude in Washington to tell foreigners that they are lesser people? Trans people deserve to die, this type of stuff. The senator from Oklahoma actually quoted that as saying. So we take Satan as the Old Testament version, and that is the voice that spoke truth to power and the voice that spoke for the tyrannized and the oppressed. So Satanism, essentially, it's a religion of the underdog. And so when you think about like the tyrannized and the oppressed in today's culture, you think about people of color, you think about women, you think about like the queer community. So we are all about lifting up the voices of all and not just some. And when I say that, I mean like Christianity only cares about Christians, specifically white Christians. So the laws that govern our land are largely set up from Christian nationalists. So that's kind of what we fight against, is people live here in America who are Muslim, who are Jewish, who are Buddhist, or who just don't worship anything. Why should they be relegated to live by laws that were made to help and to lift up Christians, essentially?
Yeah, and it's kind of wild you say that. So like when I come up with the questions for my show, a lot of times I don't get to half of them, right? But I do my own research, and then I also sometimes will pop into ChatGPT and I'll say, give me 20 questions to ask. And I do that because sometimes it'll have a spin on a question I was thinking in my head, but it gives me a better outlook, and then I'll adjust it.
Yeah.
And I asked, what's 20 questions you would ask when you're interviewing a Satanist? And it's funny you mentioned activism, because it talked a lot about activism. And I didn't think about that at all. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that wouldn't think about activism and Satanism and how they correlate.
The two really go hand in hand. So the main tenet of Satanism is don't be a dick. That's truly what Satanism comes down to. And I feel like you can kind of burn that into any religion. It's just we take a more hardcore approach to it. You know, Christianity doing like the golden rule type of stuff, like just be a good person, treat people the way you want to be treated, this, that, and the other. The same really goes for Satanism, but we just kind of take a more hardline approach of if we see people who are affecting others' lives, then we become a problem. So we not only treat people with care and compassion, but we also fight for those who have been, tyrannized and oppressed. So.
Well, it's funny because, and I've talked to I've had some religious people on the podcast, and I'll start by saying I'm not religious. I'm Catholic. That's what I was baptized at when I was a baby, right? And I was not able to make decisions for myself.
Sure.
And that's fine. I mean, we get it. That's how Christianity works. I will say, for me, I believe that there is something. I don't know what the fuck it is. Cool. Right?
Yeah.
I have no fucking idea. It could be a giant elephant thing with 32 arms. Who fucking knows?
The flying spaghetti monster.
By the time you do know, it's a little too late.
Sure.
So, but I do think that there's an afterlife because, I don't know. I guess I deal with old people a lot. So I deal with people dying more regularly. So I probably think about that a little more than your average, 38-year-old. But I don't know if I could ever go full on. Like I did go to, Catholic school when I was a kid, on Sundays or whatever. And then I did go to church for a little while. And it's just not me, dude. That rah-rah shit, I just can't. I can't do it. It's like I'm faking it.
Yeah.
And I know there's probably a lot of people that do that.
Yeah.
And, it's like, oh, well, I'll be saved. It's like, but like if you're faking it, how do you know that, Jesus or your God doesn't see that shit in 2 seconds.
Right.
The moment you walk in, right? So it's like, I try not to be a fake person. And I just feel like me going to church is just fake.
Yeah. So you would be what we call a recovering Catholic. I don't know if you've probably heard that term growing, like in Catholicism, I'm sure it's a thing. That's just kind of what we jokingly call it. Somebody who was a Catholic, but used to only go on like Easter Mass and, would go 3 times a year. Those are recovering Catholics. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just, that's not me, dude. Who knows? Maybe it bites me in the ass at the end of the day. I don't know. Or maybe I change.
So
I just, for me, it's about, I still need to find it.
Yeah.
Like I'm at the discovery phase because I feel like I have a lot more knowledge now, obviously, than when I was 10.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. So like for me, and I've always been a scientific person, which makes it even harder for me to believe in certain shit.
So one of the main tenets, and we're going to get to it in a minute, but one of the main guiding principles to Satanism is that we live primarily for the scientific method. Things that we can prove, things that we can measure, things that we can observe. So, it's very blasphemous to say God doesn't exist because there's actually no proof other than firsthand accounts that were written and rewritten several times throughout history. And usually history is written by the victors. So who's to say that the original text that we're reading or they're reading is even like the same as it was back then? So yeah, when you say, live in by science, that is actually one of our main guiding principles. We live by the scientific method. And kind of to talk about what you had said about the afterlife. So a Satanist standpoint on it would or should be that when you die, you just become worm food, because there's no scientific, so far to this date, no scientific data to show anything other than that. So that would be like my stance. If you were to ask me like what happens when you die, I'm like, well, you just go in a fancy box and then you become dirt, essentially. So
I had a girl on. She was a death doula, which I didn't know existed, and I thought asking her. I like to ask people who, like, if they bring up spiritualism or death. I always like to get different people from all over what they think, because it's funny. I feel like I haven't gotten the same answer twice of interviewing a lot of people, which is kind of wild. Everyone kind of has their own concept of the afterlife. And, I thought she was going to go in and give me all the flowers and sunshine and shit. And she's like, do you remember before you were born? Or do you remember what you did in the womb? And I'm like, no. She's like, that's what I think happens. And I'm like, oh, shit. She's like, she fucked me up, man. She's like, do you remember any of that stuff? I'm like, no. She's like, that's what I think. She's like, I think it's just black and you're gone.
I'll take that a step further. Do you remember shit when you were like 2 or 3?
No, not really.
Honestly,
I mean, I get vivid memories that could be real.
Sure.
But
I've thought about this long and hard, and I think my first like memory that I can remember that is tangible and I can still recall it, I was like 5 years old. Like, I can't remember 1 or like, 2 months, 4 months, 2 years. I can't even remember like shit that happened like when I was 3. And my mom would tell me, I'm like, yeah, I don't have any recollection of that. So yeah, that's wild that she even brought that back to in utero, like, in the womb. Like, do you even remember? Like, no, of course not.
I think one of my favorite all-time comedic skits is Louis C.K. And he's explaining, he's like, do you guys want to know what my first memory was? And he's like, I was out on the porch. I was 5. Don't remember shit before this. And he's like, I was shitting my pants. And he said it must have been the biggest, whitest shit that was tearing up my asshole. And it booted me to life. He's like, it booted my memories. And I was fucking dying. It's one of my all-time, like, top 5 skits. And I'm like, how awesome is that your first memory is you're fucking shitting your pants? That
is very Louis C.K., yeah.
I fucking love Louis C.K., dude. He's hilarious. So we hit on kind of what Satanism is to a certain degree, right? Yeah. Can you, and I guess can you go into this real quick? I don't know if it's a short answer, but can you explain the difference between your anarchistic Satanism to the standard, whatever the standard Satanism would be?
So anarchistic Satanism has 3 main banners. So one, we don't believe in a singular leadership. So in the Free Society Satanist, I am the co-founder. There's also a girl named Cy who's also a co-founder. She's up in the Philadelphia area. She's up very close to you. Oh. And we also have a council of 4. So myself and Cy will decide an idea that we want to push for the group. If both of us think it's a good idea, then we bring it to the council. We're like, council, we came up with this. What do you guys think? Do you think the group would love it? And they go, yes. So then we, based on the strength of that vote, we then bring it to a group vote. So there is no one true person saying, this is what you're going to do. This is what we're doing. Deal with it. Everything in the Free Society Satanist gets voted on at the top, middle, and bottom. So it is a true democracy. Another way that we're anarchistic is in the fact of we treat big market capitalism and CEOs to the same evil as we do the church. If you think about like the Amazon, like people having to piss in jugs and people being timed on how long they're in the bathroom, like you're basically treating humans like animals and vice versa. Yeah. So we recognize the harm that not only religion has done to people, but also the harm that like massive corporations have done. And in the news now, I'm sure we'll get into this a little bit, the United Healthcare guy. You can imagine the side that we took on that, and it was not boo for the shooter. And not to say like we're inciting violence, but like you can see why. Like somebody who like, their dad was probably dying or their mom had cancer or something, and some dickhead up in Washington said, "Oh, well, we're not going to cover that. Like this person's life doesn't matter." They effectively had, like pick an insurance company. It happens everywhere. Like they're basically playing God with people's lives, and it's disgusting. Where you can roll the tape with like Exxon back in our day when we were young, like dumping massive, like how many thousands of gallons of oil into the Juan Valdez, incident. So we kind of look at big market capitalism as doing the same amount of harm, if not more, than organized religion. So.
Yeah, look, I work in insurance, and I work specifically with Medicare. So I work with old people, and they get fucked the most. Like, just and it's wild because you'll hear any politician, any president say, "Oh, we value our seniors, and we're doing this to protect them," and no, everything they decide fucks seniors. And I will say. It's kind of funny, right? After the CEO thing happened with, Luigi taking out the United Healthcare guy, one, they took companies started taking their CEOs' pictures off their websites, which I thought was funny.
Yep.
And then the other thing that happened, and I don't know if you saw this, but Independence Blue Cross came out and said that they're not going to pay for certain anesthesia. Like they're not going to, I don't know if it was like a certain stage or like they wouldn't pay for the whole thing. And the CEO thing happened, and they had announced it like right around the same time. And then all I saw was a tweet of some guy going, "Hey, just asking for a friend, where does the CEO live for Independence Blue Cross?" And then within 2 hours, they were like, "Yep, we changed our mind, not going to do that."
And that's another part of like anarchism, letting the public have the say. Like the public will tell you what they want. And if that's not the case, then it can affect change. Now, once again, like I said, like that anarchistic portion of Satanism does not promote or condone going out and doing shit like that. We can just understand why. And so how that differentiates between normal modern Satanism is most satanic groups will have one leader. Like, TST has like Lucian Greaves. Other satanic spaces have the leader who says, "This is what we're doing, get on board," or "There's the door." Like that's kind of the main way is we take ideas, we bring them to a group, and then we bring them to the whole group, and it has to pass like majority vote to even become a thing. So,
I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
And it's sad because right at the end of the day, you're using two words that have a negative connotation with normal people, right? Anarchy, negative.
Yeah.
Satanism, negative. It's like a double negative almost, right? So it's got to be a fight for you guys to sometimes be able to portray your side of things, because people come into it already negatively.
Sure.
Almost every time, right?
So, people. So only people who want to be Satanist are going to be Satanist. And you would be shocked at how little we get infiltrated with people who just want to like find out stuff or stir the pot. I've been a Satanist for 3 years, and I can count on one finger the number of times I've seen that happen. So people who are already kind of in the know about what Satanism is or what certain satanic groups are to a certain degree, they kind of already are like on our playing field. They kind of already have that mindset. It's the people on the outside. So Christianity, and I will specifically use Christianity just because they're the loudest voice, like in, media, whatever. They used a tactic that was very popular in World War II. Adolf Hitler said, to unite a people, give them a common enemy. So the Jews in World War II, like, unite Germany, blah, 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 let's go after these fuckers. So what's the opposite of God? Satan. We're going after Satanists. If you don't agree with the church, you're a Satanist. Blah, blah, blah. That's why we took the old scripture of Satan as being the one who spoke out against power. That's like literally, like they said, like, we're going after these people. Like, oh, okay, well, we don't like you guys. We'll be that. So mainly the people in the church who have no idea what we do other than the fact of we just raised our hand and said, yes, we're against that. They're the ones who think we're like killing babies and sacrificing goats and wearing robes and shit. And a satanic ritual is far more boring than that. It's actually comical how boring it is.
Well, it's funny. I always say this to people who are like, I try to fuck with people sometimes that are like big Christians. And I always tell people, because I took a lot of Western civilization history because I love history in college. And I tell people, like, did you know that Christianity used to be a cult?
Yeah.
Like, they weren't allowed to just pray to God out in the open. They used to have to fucking hide in basements, and they were fucking murdered. And, like, it was very similar to what I guess you would consider like a Satanist in the grand scheme of things. And a lot of times I get the evil eye and people are like, don't believe me. I'm like, no, that's fucking history, man.
Yeah.
Christianity didn't fucking get big until, was it King George?
I think so.
I don't know. It was one of the kings. I think it was George that like said, this is our national religion now.
Yeah.
And everyone has to follow it. And that's when it became what it is today.
Well, I mean, I'm a Satanist, but I have like some knowledge of the Bible, and like the Romans were the one who were like going after these people. So like the crucifixion, those were the Romans. Like the Romans were trying to wipe this shit out, which they could have done a better job, but I digress. Sorry. If only they had a little more work ethic. No,
bastards.
So yeah, like that's at the part that's historically where they were a cult thing. Yeah, that was during the Roman times. Romans thought these people were heretics, so who's to say who's right there? And they were the ones who were going after them. So yeah, absolutely. Any Christian who doesn't know that's a bad Christian. Like, I don't know.
Dude, I say most people don't fucking know that because they don't, like in Christianity and Catholicism, all that shit, they don't teach you the history of it. That the history that they don't want you to know.
Right.
Right. And I encourage people, and I'm not talking down about everything. I'm just saying you should probably do your own research and at least know these things, because I think that makes you better at understanding other sides of the coin. Yeah. Just that's how I look at the world. I know we're not in a place where people can have different views without getting killed for it. Now, you referenced 9 principles. Can you kind of break those down for us?
So much like any religion, we have ourselves our own like guiding principles, and these are the principles of morality. And I want to start with the last one. Have you looked at these before? Are these going to be brand new to you?
Never.
Okay, perfect.
Brand new to me. Yeah, I was going to, but I'd rather learn on the spot because it makes it better for me.
Good. I want to start off with the last one. The last one is the 9th principle, and it says, and this is important because I'm going to be reading our guiding principles to people, so I want this to come off correct. The 9th principle says, never proselytize. If asked questions, answer them. Otherwise, let people discover the path for themselves. So what I say that is, you will never see a Satanist on a soapbox going, come to our church or come to our side. We're right, they're wrong. We actually try very hard not to sway people into it because we don't want people there on false pretenses. So by me coming on this show and reading these, I'm not trying to change anybody's mind. I'm just trying to tell people how we are. So the first principle, and this is the most important one, and this kind of also defines Satanism. You are your own master and shall live life according to your own will alone. What that means is we ultimately have jurisdiction over our lives. We don't need anybody else telling us what's moral and what is correct. I feel like we can make that decision for ourselves. Satanism also treats the self as the master. So I'm the god of my world. I worship me. Satanism is a very self-worshiping religion. To that end, I'm also not going to make that a burden upon anybody else. Meaning, like, I'm the god of this life. Like, you do what I say. Or you're the god of your life. It stops here. So that's the first principle there. The second one is show compassion and respect to yourself first and others second. If someone exploits your compassion, rescind it. So you and I, we've been going for 29 minutes, pretty friendly banner. We're both friends here. I'm going to start off every interaction with compassion and empathy. I love you, Rob. Yeah. You're a cool dude. I've heard your podcast.
Love you
You're
too,
a
man.
Funny motherfucker, man. But if I were to offend you or you were to offend me and we had a talk and we couldn't work it out, either one would no longer have the other's compassion. They would then be shown wrath. So we don't start off with anger. We don't start off with animosity. I'm going to treat every human being that I come across with compassion and kindness until you prove that that is something you do not want. So that's that one.
I mean, everyone should be like that. Yeah. It should be a guiding principle for everyone.
You would be surprised at the end of reading these, how many podcasts I've gone on and people were like, oh shit, this is how I live my life. Once again, not trying to sway, but the third one, logic and reason shall always prevail over superstition and dogma. So what I was talking about earlier, like the scientific method, logic and reason, anything that we can measure, observe, and see should always take precedence over superstition and stories passed down through the ages, just because it's easier to verify. Number 4, respect others' boundaries, lest yours be trampled underfoot. So I come over to your house and I kick my feet up on the coffee table and you're like, Andrew, put those down. Oh shit, my bad. I did it. Then I put my feet up on your couch. You know, dude, take that. Like, what are you doing? Like, this is my house. This isn't your fucking playground. What somebody has trampled on your boundaries, theirs don't matter. So there's that one. You know, just basically respect other people's boundaries or yours don't matter either.
I have friends like that.
And then you just walk up behind him, smack him in the back of the head. Dude, like, what the fuck?
Well, yeah. Just tell him that he's a piece of shit.
Sure, yeah. The next one is another one that I really enjoy. Strive to live each day as your most authentic self. Now, what we mean by that is people look how they want to look. You can present however you want to. In my early years, I had like a 2-foot mohawk. I would paint these 4 fingernails black. I would just wear I was an angsty teenager. I was a punk rocker in the 90s. So
hey, look, some of my best friends, to this day, they're the nicest people ever. Yeah. Blue 2-foot mohawk, a punk rocker. My other buddy had hair that went down to his ass, but he was Irish. Yeah. Red hair, and we all were just like into that shit. You know, I was a little more of the. We'll say I wore my. Oh God, I hate saying this because I look back at pictures and I was such a fucking ass. But I wore like my collared shirts with the collar popped. These are early 2000s. Yeah, I mean,
in the parlance of the time, that's what most every other people were doing too. I mean, early aughts fashion, you know. But what that means is essentially, you know, if people can't accept a piece of you, they can't accept every part of you. So don't feel like you have to water yourself down. Don't feel like you have to put a shell on yourself in order to get by. Live your life on full tilt. And that's just like more self-empowering, self-freedom. Number 6, I kind of broke at the beginning of this episode. And number 6 says, indulge without excess. Do what thou wilt as long as it brings harm to no one else. So I drink every day. I like to sip. Usually like this will last me about an hour. I'll just sip on it as I've been doing this show. But I know I'm not going to drive anymore today. I'm where I'm going to be. The key is on the hook. So how that differs from religion is, you know, the Bible will say your body's your temple. You should do nothing to harm your temple. We say life sucks, man. If you need an edible, if you need to smoke a bowl, have a drink with dinner, man. Who gives a fuck? Like whatever helps you get through life, as long as your choices don't affect other people, who am I to tell you what to do?
Yeah. I think that's a good principle.
So there's that one. Yeah, sure. And it's all about your personal choice for morality. Like, I'm just going to choose to sip on this the rest of the day. I'm not going to choose to down an entire bottle, then get behind the wheel and go joyriding, because that's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
So number 7, treat nature and her environs with the utmost respect. That's one that you're not going to find in any other satanic organization. And I felt that was important to us because if you think about either an invisible sky daddy or Mother Nature, who has given us more in this world? I would say Mother Nature. She's given us the sun to feed the plants to feed the animals, and the animals to feed us. So she's really given us basically everything that we need to survive on this planet. So respecting nature and respecting the earth is kind of an important thing to do.
Like not tossing your 2-liter bottle of Coke out of your car for no reason.
Yeah. Or even like getting back into the anarchistic portion, like having a massive frickin' factory that's just billowing smoke into the air. We're not saying get back to living off the land here, but I mean, there's more responsible ways to like, dispose of emissions.
Yeah.
The last one is also important in the fact that it is counter Christianity. And it says, if you wrong someone, acknowledge your mistake and work to ensure that it won't be repeated. So what that means is I offend you. You and I are together and I'm like, Rob, you bald motherfucker. That hurt. That hurts your feelings, and so like you'd be like,
not anymore.
You were like, Jack, that was kind of fucked up. What are you doing? And so I would come to you and I was like, you know what? I was wrong on that. Let me work to show you that I know what I did was wrong, and I don't expect an apology until you see that my actions have changed, that my actions have shown that I've truly worked through what I've done. Whereas the Bible would just say, turn the other cheek. That's just getting hit twice. Why do that? Like, you're making yourself an easy mark. So acknowledging your mistakes and working to ensure that it won't be repeated puts the onus of the forgiveness on the person who did the wrong, not the person who was wronged. So we take self-ownership. It's very important in our group. And then getting back to the last one, never proselytize. We've come full circle there.
So basically, I mean, all of those things are, I mean, that just makes you a good human at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like, where do I sign in blood, Jack?
You figured it out.
Is that what you're going to tell me next?
Well, we only accept souls on certain solstices, which coincidentally today is winter solstice. So you're in luck. No.
Actually, before you get, what is that symbol? Is that your symbol?
So yeah, this is the firebrand. Hold on one second.
Okay. Because I saw your tattoo as well.
And also my necklace as well, which probably isn't showing up. But anyway, when we formed the Free Society Satanist, we wanted it to be different from other satanic organizations. And we could have used the inverted pentagram. We could have used the Leviathan cross, but that would have put us in no better standing than other satanic groups that have already been formed. We kind of wanted to kind of branch out and make ourselves, like under the anarchistic banner, a little bit different than other satanic spaces that you'll find. So I came up with, it's a colophon. A colophon is a publisher's mark that they used to put on spines of books at the turn of the century. So if you get like an old vintage book, down at the bottom, you would see a colophon. Yeah. And that colophon is literally just the letters TFS, the Free Society, FST.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's not so much like a satanic symbol per se. We just kind of turned it into one. But if you look up how to spell it is COLOPHON. Colophon is, they kind of went out of favor about the 1910s, 1920s, but books before then, every book would have a colophon on the spine. Like this book was printed in Germany or this book was printed in Austria or whatever. Like it would just have its own separate regional colophon. So yeah, we chose that idea, but made it our own.
That's cool. I mean, hey, look, I know that symbol. I knew I referenced it in my mind, but I could have never told you what the hell it was. Ever.
It also helps us hide better in plain sight. So if you want to wear a quote unquote satanic image, this is, the Free Society Satanist. This is our logo, but nobody knows what it means. So I bring my cup with me everywhere I go, and no one has ever asked me what it means.
Yeah, it's actually like, because a lot of times you think of the upside down cross and shit like that.
To which the upside down cross is a Christian symbol. Did you know that?
Really?
So it's called.
I didn't know that.
It's called the Cross of St. Peter. And when St. Peter was crucified, he did not want to be crucified right side up because he felt like he didn't deserve to be crucified like Jesus. So he asked to be crucified upside down. Certain churches will use the inverted cross for St. Peter's Day. Mainly, I think it's Catholicism will mainly use that. But yeah, there are services where there are inverted crosses in church services. So yeah, that's just called the St. Peter's Cross.
I did not know that.
We didn't invent that one.
We recently went to. It was a really cool experience. We went to Salem. It was on the bucket list,
Yeah.
and it was. We were there for about 3 or 4 days, and it was cool. Like we got to tour and the history of that town is just. It's fucking cool, man. It just brings you back.
Did you swing by the art gallery?
We did not go by the art gallery.
Yeah.
The biggest thing we did was, you ever hear of the movie House of Seven Gables? Yeah. We toured the House of Seven Gables, which only got popular because of that movie, really, at the end of the day. Then they turned it into a museum, but it was really cool. We got to, they wanted to mimic the book because the movie was after the book. And they created a staircase that winds behind the fireplace.
Whoa.
And it's pretty fucking wicked because it took you upstairs. Because in the book, a kid that lived in the house, he got around the house by secret passageways. Yeah. And that was one of the secret passageways. It was a small door that took you up to the 3rd floor. And look, it was a little... I was a little iffy about going up there because it looked a little rickety. But... we bought a shot glass. We always buy shot glasses wherever we go to a new place. And it said I climbed the stairs of the House of Seven Gables. It's like a challenge. You're not required to do it, but if you want, you can kind of say I did it.
Cool.
Type of thing. But it was cool. If you ever, I know you guys aren't into superstition as much, and that's like their whole thing. But if you're into history, there's a lot of really and just it's quaint.
Taking a Satanist to a haunted house will be the most boring thing you could ever do, just because we're like, dude, that's the fucking radiator creaking. This house is 200 years old. Of course, it's going to make noise. So yeah, but no, I'm very much enthralled by the aesthetic of that stuff. Not so much like the lore and the history, but like the aesthetic of old things fascinates me, because like it's been there for 200 years, or that house is like probably built in the 1700s or something like that. So the fact that you said it was like newer, but just like old architecture like that, just in and of it.
The whole town is like that, dude. The whole town. And one of the first streets of America is like that main strip in Salem. And the houses, like they were telling us, just a studio or like one of the floors of one of the houses was selling for $3 million. Like, because it's one of our original streets.
Did you learn, and now this is kind of adjacent to the Satanic Panic, did you learn why the witch trials started? This fascinates me.
I think they had mentioned it, but we didn't do a ton of like witch style tours. We did we went on Friday the 13th, actually. So we did a Friday the 13th tour, and they kind of walked us around. It was really cool.
So the witch trials started because that time in that neck of the woods, at that year, the crop of wheat had some wheat germ that basically infected the wheat, made it useless. You couldn't eat it. And if you baked with it, it made people really sick. I forget the exact name of the mite that infected the wheat. But basically, if you ate bread made from infected wheat, it would make you hallucinate. So who was the food producers back in those days? Women. Women cooked, men hunted and protected the house, like all that stuff. So women were making bread with this wheat that they had no idea was infected. They had never dealt with this. It's like the cicada thing. It happens once every 13 years or once. It was like a once in a million thing. So men were eating bread and tripping balls, and they thought that the women were putting curses on their food. When it comes out to find out, they were just eating acid, basically. So the witch trials started based on dudes getting high as fuck off of bread that the women were making. And they're like, she poisoned me. She made me see demons. Because how can you explain in your mind, if you've never tripped before, what you're seeing?
Yeah.
Makes sense, right? So
that's wild.
I say that to say this, like that has a lot of like tie over to the Satanic Panic, because people who weren't used to that aesthetic and that lifestyle, seeing things that look different than them, obviously that's the devil. Well, no, it's just some dude listening to Slayer, and he has long black hair. Like, he's not doing anything. But
when we were there, the first story that they told us on that trip was wild. It was they took us to this fountain, and apparently back in those days, you could reprimand your woman in front of everybody. It was like you could call them up and just beat the shit out of them in front of everybody because they they didn't listen to you.
That's where
Sorry. Yeah, no, but they this lady, I guess it happened with her and her husband. They had just had a kid, and so and I'm definitely cutting parts of the story out to make it quick. But she ends up leaving with the child. She took the kid, the newborn, comes back. It was either a week or two later. Calls everybody to that fountain. And fucking kills the baby in front of everybody.
Oh shit!
Just and I don't know if it was out of like spite, but turns out she probably had postpartum depression, right? But back then they were like, oh shit, and they couldn't save the kid, obviously.
Sure.
But they killed that fucking kid right at that waterfall. And that's where they got all their fresh water back in the day.
Yeah.
And apparently it people say it's haunted or whatever. Yeah. They hear shit or whatever. But that was the first thing we learned on our tour there.
And talking about like reprimanding your wife back in the day, that's where the saying rule of thumb comes from. Back in the day, you could beat your wife as long as you used a stick no wider than your thumb. That's where the rule of thumb comes from. That's pretty gross when you think about that.
Well, I wonder why they got rid of that.
I mean, you can't do much damage with that now. Perhaps they should have called it the rule of wrist,
Rule of wrist, rule of thigh, something like that. So let's, you had mentioned rituals.
Yeah.
So it's one of the things I wanted to ask you about. Is there anything ritually that you are required to do? You said they were boring, so tell us a little bit about what that looks like. Because, the first thing people think about is that you're killing a baby, you're slitting the fucking goat's throat and shit.
You hear satanic ritual. Okay, so ritual holds as big or as little of a place in the satanic world as you want it to. There are no rituals to become a Satanist other than to say, I'm a Satanist. That's how you become one. Hey, guess what? I'm a Satanist. You're one. I am a actual reverend. I have performed an unbaptism ritual, and that is as boring as an actual baptism. So all an unbaptism is I'm going to ask you 4 questions, and then you're going to take a drink. That's it. Do you promise to live this day, from this day on to live life by your will alone, listening to no one else other than your internal spirit? I do. Okay. Do you promise to live this day, unbound from superstition and dogma that once ruled your life? I do. And then the other 2 questions. And then I'll say, Rob, the liquid in this cup is known only to you. By drinking it, you dissolve the waters that once rushed over your head. And then you drink, you're unbaptized. That's it. You can kind of zhuzh them up a little bit by having black candles or having kind of cool music in the background. But I performed 2 of them on our last meetup. And, we had candles burning, but it was mainly just 2 people having a conversation. I'm going to ask you this. You respond. Okay, boom, it's done. I will be performing a satanic wedding in the next, I think in the next 2 years. And a satanic wedding is nothing more than a regular wedding without the word God in it. That's a satanic ritual.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I say that everything's a ritual. I have this certain glass that I like drinking whiskey out of. When I go to the whiskey bottle, I get this glass, I pour it to this level, and I drink it. That's my ritual. People who smoke pot know all too well. Sit down on the couch. Okay, got my pajamas on. I got the, the pipe. Cartoon Network's playing.
Pizza on the table.
Yeah. DoorDash is on its way. So everything is a ritual.
Yeah,
we do have.
I'm a big time ritualistic person.
Sure.
You call it habit if you like, but I fall into that quite easily.
There are 0, and I can't say this enough. There are 0 rituals where blood is let, where anybody is harmed, and where nobody in said ritual is not doing anything that they did not agree to. So we're never going to slice our hand and make a blood oath, or we're not into harming people. That's not what we're about. So to that end, yes, satanic rituals are really fucking boring. I'm sorry to shock the world here. I know you guys wanted to hear the meat and potatoes, but no, it's basically just a bunch of goofs talking about goofy shit. That's really what satanic rituals are. And they, like I said it before, They play as big or as little of a part of your satanic journey as you want them to be.
Now, one thing I wanted to ask you about, because I feel like, we all think of it that way, but when we're talking about Satan, can you give us a feel for, like, are we thinking of the big red demon Satan? Are we thinking of the fallen? Like, give us a little tidbit of what Satan is.
So there are two.
Is he a figure?
No, he's not. There are two camps of Satanism. There are the theistic Satanists who worship a literal devil, much like people worship a literal God. There are people who think he is a real person. And then we are atheistic Satanists. So we only use Satan as the symbol. And usually we would use the romantic Satanist or the romantic Satan, who is the long flowy hair, the more sexy looking Satan rather than the viper gator tail and the red devil. But no, we only use it as a representation of the Old Testament text, which was just a voice that spoke out to truth or power. But yeah, theistic Satanists worship the devil. And that's as goofy as people who worship a god. It's like, once again,
kind of goes against what you guys even stand for.
I mean, you're
right?
being subjugated to just another deity. You don't need another deity. You're the deity. Like, I'm telling myself what's right here. Like, I'm worshiping me. My version of Satanism does not have a literal or a physical Satan. It's just like the translation of that word from the Old Testament.
Okay. Yep. Okay. I kind of figured that, but I'm sure like a lot of people instantly think that, oh yeah, well it's got to be the big red devil with the horns and shit.
Yeah.
Now obviously you say people give themselves their Satan name, right?
Yeah.
The name of the church, right?
No.
Is it a church?
So
I always throw that word around, and I don't know if that's being correct or not.
Yes and no. So a church, by the Bible definition, is any place where two or more people congregate. If you remember that at all from Bible or whatnot. We don't have a brick and mortar church. Twice a year we have meetups because I am effectively the co-founder of the southeastern portion of America. So Tennessee, the Carolinas, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and Florida. So twice a year we'll have meetups, and that's our church. We don't have services because, once again, we are a religion of the self. So by me saying what to worship, that would be me telling somebody else what to do. So we just have meetups where we get together, we talk about satanic ideas. We congregate and fellowship under the satanic banner and our satanic values of basically reaching out and fighting alongside the tyrannized and the oppressed. How can we do that better? We usually go to the pride parades and the pride events, and we'll kind of form a human barrier between the Westboro Baptist fuckheads and the pride attendees. And if you want to yell at somebody, yell at us, man. Let these guys have fun. We can take it. Like, let these fuckers have their day. They're here for them. They don't want to hear your shit. Yell at us. So that's kind of us, like, standing up and fighting the good fight so people can just enjoy their life.
So the names.
Yeah.
So like, how does, like, is that something that people just decide whatever? Obviously you're probably not Mr. Violently, but that is fucking cool to say.
So the reason we have what we call Satanyms or pseudonyms is because in working world, in professional settings, or even like family settings, people don't want their family to know they're Satanists. Some people can lose their jobs over this. Some people can be harassed by this. My name is...
That's so stupid.
Yeah, my name is Jack Violently, and if you haven't guessed by now, that's a masturbation reference. So I got that long before I was a Satanist. So I was in a punk band from like 98 until 2015, and that was my stage name. I played bass in a punk band, and it was kind of like the Queers. Joe Queer, obviously that's not his name. So I was like, yeah, Jack Violently. Like, what's a stupid fucking band name? Jack Violently and the Throbbers. So I just kept my stage name that I used in my punk band, but people will basically just choose whatever. A lot of women choose Lilith to some degree. A lot of guys will choose Levi kind of to be in their Satan name, but it's basically just a name that means something to them, that, they like, and that doesn't really tell their actual name.
I mean, I think that's smart.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with all the negativity that surrounds it.
Yeah.
You know, I'd imagine, you know, it definitely helps.
But it's so funny starting off every podcast. I'm also like the host of the Ave Satanist podcast. I always love saying, welcome back to the Ave Satanist podcast. I'm your host, Jack Violently, because I try to make it sound so official for it to be such a goofy fucking reference to like masturbation. So,
yeah. I mean, I think it's funny. And I think it lightens the atmosphere too, right?
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, you know, you're like, oh, I talked to a Satanist today. Well, what's his name? Jack Violently. And we're both laughing the moment we say it. Right? You can't say that with a straight face.
Why take yourself too serious? At the end of the day, I mean, dude, if you can have more extra laughs, why the fuck not, man?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think you answered this, but talk to me a little bit about what your, since a lot of this is internal, right?
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about what your practice looks like on a regular basis. You know, are you guys doing like Discord calls with each other here and there, like, you know, things like that? Like, what's that look like? So since you don't really meet outside of those 2 times a year physically.
Yeah, so we organize primarily on Discord, and at the end of the show, I will give a link to join the free society if you're so inclined. But every Sunday we have what's called Sunday with Satan. That goes from noon until
I like that.
Yeah, noon until 2 or 3, and it's basically a time where we can all get together and congregate, just talk. Basically, it's nothing more than us just kind of talking shit about like our week that just ended. You know, it's like, what happened to you this week? You know, like, you know, oh, cool, I got a promotion, or this happened to me at work. So it's just us being able to get together and congregate and have community on Discord, and that's usually on voice chat. And then we also plan our 2 yearly meetings. We also plan our fundraising efforts. We plan our book club, our craft night, and our movie night through Discord. And that's there to further promote community as well.
That's cool. Are there any stereotypes that we haven't discussed that you secretly find funny that people believe?
You know, it could be talked to ad nauseum, but like what the normal movie tropes of like the hooded black robe and people walking into a dungeon that has like candles and shit and everybody's like stoic. If you hang out with a bunch of pentagrams, yeah. I mean, I like a pentagram. It's a cool symbol, but like, no, we don't really do that shit. If you were to hang out with a bunch of Satanists, listening to the 100th episode, you would crack the fuck up. We are just there to, we shit post, we make goofy jokes, you know, we're just there like just telling stupid stories and having fun. Our Sunday with Satan was nothing more than your 100th episode podcast that just came out, but it's just us doing it in our space. That's pretty much what it is. But yeah, other than that, like, you know, like those tropes I've always found dumb because they didn't bother to even remotely do an ounce of research. So a Hollywood director would just be like, okay, that's what they do. It's been done before, so why not let's keep doing it? Have you seen the new movie out? It's been out about a year, Longlegs.
I did. Yes.
Nicolas Cage. I like to give him shit because he's a horrible actor, but this movie here. So we were trying to think to ourselves, like, if Satanism were like what it is in the movies, would you have joined? And that was a topic we had on Discord. And for the most part, people were like, you know, like all the movies that have came out since the dawn of time. Yeah, I probably would. When we got to Longlegs, people were like, fuck no, I wouldn't have joined Satanism. Because that scene where it's like white hair and white face and Nicolas Cage's face is right in the camera and he goes, "Hail Satan." And he just bashes his head into the table until he dies. I was like, what the fuck, man? So yeah,
he was a creep in that fucking movie, dude.
It's like, creep.
Oh yes. Man, he was a fucking creep. The wifey didn't even know it was him. I'm like, you know that's Nicolas Cage, right? She's like, nah.
It took me 10 minutes.
I'm like, it's Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, it took me a few minutes to like really like study his face before I was like, oh shit, that. So, you know, like I'm gonna steal the Declaration of Independence. Fuck off, man. Do more shit like this, dude. Like, because he finally showed his acting chops. But no, so yeah, like that was the only time I've seen Satanism represented in a movie that shocked me. And I've seen a ton of shit.
Wow, okay.
I watch satanic movies, and that one I was like, oh shit, god dang, dude. So yeah,
that's funny. So let's end with this one.
Yeah.
And I think this is a good one to end with. So if you were going to talk to somebody and you wanted them to understand like your philosophy of, you know, your style of Satanism, what would be the first thing you'd recommend for them to explore, to do their own research?
The first thing that I would recommend them to look at is actually a movie from a group that I don't even fully support. That's TST, the Satanic Temple. There's a documentary called Hail Satan with a question mark at the end of it. That's the full title, Hail Satan. You can find it on Amazon. That, even though we do not align with TST, that's still a very good primer to get like into actual Satanism. The other thing I would say is like check out our website, Free Society Satanists with an S at the end.com. I'm sure you'll probably put that in the show notes. That'll tell you pretty much everything you need to know about what we espouse. But yeah, the documentary Hail Satan ? Great documentary. Unfortunately, it's about TST, but I digress. Yeah, give that a look. I would definitely suggest against reading the Satanic Bible. Anton LaVey, Church of Satan. You're going to get a lot of alt-right and a lot of white power coded shit in that. So I don't necessarily condone that. But yeah, Hail Satan's a good documentary. Our website, The Satanic Narratives by Daniel Ball, B-A''A''L, which I think that's also a Satanym. Yeah, like those three things there.
And you know, if someone listens to this and they go, oh shit, you know what? Those are my principles. I want to join. What's the best way they can like, you know, well, one, you got to plug yourself, but in terms of joining up, how can they do that? So
first off, I would tell people if you have Spotify or whatever platform you choose, check out the Ave Satanis podcast. We are centrally located in the southeastern region of the United States, but we do take members from everywhere. We have members in other countries. You can join our Discord by that website. Also looking up Global Order of Satan. Global Order of Satan is who we are under the umbrella of. And on their website, globalorderofsatan.com, if you find like join a community, there's different organizations throughout the world that have groups that you can join primarily on Discord. And yeah, that's the best way to find a satanic community in your area is through those two ways.
Awesome. All right. And where can everyone find all your shit, man?
Yeah.
Plug yourself, baby.
So like I said, the Ave Satanis podcast, wherever you get your podcast, the freesocietysatanist.com. Our TikTok is Free Society Satanist with an S at the end. And I have an Instagram. I don't use it. It's kind of gone dead, but that is Ave Satanis podcast at Instagram. But yeah, we basically primarily just like to spread the benevolent message of you're your own master. You should really live your life according to your will alone. If you think what you're doing is good, you don't need help or validation from any other invisible sky daddy to do what you think is right in the world. Well, hopefully when we get this out there, this helps you guys, you know, maybe crack a little, of the stereotypes, the bullshit that the media portrays about you guys. And, we'll have this episode up probably next week. The video probably is not going to be for a while because I suck at editing my own videos because I'm super particular. And, my video editing my audio's, I'm very particular. My video is even worse. I'm probably on the spectrum when it comes to that shit, man. Well, aren't we all? I wanted to end by saying this. I really enjoy your podcast. You're only one of two podcasts that I've been on that I've subscribed to. I love your format in the fact of when you do these interview shows, you don't have a set theme. You'll literally interview anyone from anywhere and you will just let the person go wherever that conversation may lead. So I applaud you for that by A, not having a topic, but B, just talking to anyone from anywhere and having that long form discussion is really important in this world because I feel like that's the best way to kind of disseminate information is just let the person go, just go after it. I've listened to quite a few of your episodes and I have found myself jaw agape more often than not. And that's really the hallmark of a good podcast. I'm not going to name names because if they still listen, I don't want them to think that I'm just like shitting on them or nothing. But you and I have spoken in email. You know the ones we're discussing. Phenomenal. And I'm sure 5 guys from now, you're like, remember that fucking Satanist you had out of here last month? That dude was fucking idiot. But like,
nah, dude, you were great, man. I've had ones where I'm like, do I want to post this?
Sure.
but
no,
you got to kick out the content.
I appreciate you for doing the format and the show form that you do. I do find it very important in today's world.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, look, man, at the end of the day, I just try to, especially on a topic like this, I try to bring light, and you got to try to kill the stereotypes for a lot of this stuff, because people, they just listen to the mothership media, and they don't actually do a lot of research for themselves. So hopefully with my show, you know, people, you feel comfortable being on here, you feel comfortable about talking about what you want to talk about. No one's going to fucking judge you. No. I might, when I hit end recording, call some people a little crazy, but it doesn't mean that anything they're saying is wrong or right or whatever.
So
at the end of the day,
I'm a big boy. I'm 44 years old. I can take it. Yeah. Did you want to hit end record on me?
What now?
No. Just on this show. Like for
oh, no. I really enjoy. We're still recording here, right?
Yeah,
so
sure.
I really enjoyed what we're going through, because a lot of it was educational.
Okay.
It was stuff that, for me, I had no fucking idea, and I didn't want to do research on this stuff, because I would much rather genuinely learn it during the podcast. I feel like that's when you actually learn stuff. Now, I could have read up all the shit for Satanism if I wanted to, but there's like a million sects.
Sure.
So it's like, I probably could have read up something and had a question, and you're like, I don't do that.
Yeah.
That's not what we study. But hopefully people listen to this and they walk away from this episode and go, oh, okay, well, maybe Satanists aren't bad. They're not going to go fucking murder a goat and kill my baby, and I can have a conversation with them. Or join.
The only type of murdered meat I enjoy is the type you get at the supermarket. It's prepackaged. It's ready to go on the grill. Somebody else did the murdering. I just get to season it, marinate it, and put it on the grill. Like that's where my version of murdering animals ends, is getting the shit at Kroger, or
I can't do it myself either, man. Someone else is going to. I'm not a hunter. And I could never kill a cow myself or a deer. I'm just too much of a pussy. I don't like killing shit.
Same.
If other people do it and I don't see it, we're good. Like, it's like the wife we were talking about this. It's like when you see the fucking pigs in the slaughtered truck. You're just like, oh
yeah.
But they taste so good. Bacon is so delicious. Why does it have to taste so good?
Pork chops are delicious for a reason, because they are ugly fucking animals. No,
but Mother Nature gave it to us, though, right?
Hail Mother Nature for giving us pork. If there's one thing I can hail Mother Nature for, it's fucking bacon. Shit, yeah.
I will say this for you, right? Hail Mother Nature, hail Satan, all right? I'll give you one.
And hail thyself.
And hail thyself,
That's
all right? You can find my podcast everywhere, Drink O'Clock Pod on all socials, Drink O'Clock Podcast, anywhere you listen to podcasts. We'll have this up. We'll have clips and shit done, hopefully this millennia. And look, man, it was awesome having you on, and I really appreciate, you bringing this to some listeners that probably have no idea what's going on.
Shit, yeah, man. Anytime, if anybody has any questions or anything, if you want to do a non-satanic episode, just two dudes fucking around, I'm always here, man. Saturdays are usually my day.
Well, I'll tell you what. At some point, I'm going to have a show 200, and I'm sure I'll do the same thing. Maybe we'll get Jack violently on the show. I could have had maybe 2 more people on with one of my buddies couldn't make it because he lives in northern New York, and there was like 2 feet of snow or some crazy shit. And then I left another spot open in case. But I tell you, man, riling in 6 other degenerates like myself is not the easiest thing, especially when you're getting wasted.
I know you're trying to end this, but I do want to specify that once again. If you're not an avid listener to this podcast, if maybe you've just found it through the algorithm, go back to the show before mine and listen to it. It's called the 100th episode. I listened, my cheeks hurt from smiling, just laughing about what kind of goofy shit you guys were doing. Playing Never Have I Ever with 4 drunken people? 5? How many were it?
Yeah. So out of the 6 of us, 5 of us were drinking and or smoking a lot.
5 degenerates playing Never Have I Ever. I cracked up because you guys couldn't even remember the way it's played. For the longest time, am I supposed to put a finger down? That tripped me the fuck out so hard. And it just reminded me of just fun hangs with just your drunken buddies at college or whatever. It was a great show. So if you're just finding the Drink Clock podcast through your algorithm, Go back to an episode before mine and listen to that one. Great fucking hang.
It was one of the episodes that I was editing for 2.5 hours where I was actually laughing out loud. And I'm like, all right, I know this is a good one because I don't normally get that much of a degenerate on this show. I normally do it on other people's shows. So it was fun to let my hair down a little bit.
Shit,
you know what I'm saying? But look, man, it was a pleasure having you on. You have a great rest of your Saturday and, have fun.
Hail the Drink O'Clock podcast.
Thanks, brother.
All right.
Stormy night where legends unfold. There's a podcast that's breaking the mold. Raise your voices, raise your glass high. Welcome to the Drink O'Clock podcast. Let's dive. Oh, grab an old fashioned and join the fray. Raise your spirits, let the music play. From the corner pub to the dance hall floor. Drink O'Clock podcast, we're ready for more. We're ready for more. With a mix of folklore and rebel cheer, we'll guide you through tales of whiskey and beer. From Irish shores to lands afar, grab your friends, it's time to raise